Sahana bhavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditam astu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us both. May we work together with great energy and vigor. May our study be full of illumination. We may not unnecessarily cavil with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. The reason why we say peace 3 times is because we think that in the law of causation, we are a primary cause of our own difficulties or our own good fortune. We are our own best friend, our own worst enemy. Secondly, there are things out of our control. There are events caused by others, a general consensus of ill will that moves towards us. And thirdly is what we might call acts of God, things out of our control, things that just happen in nature. So I was beginning this talk by saying, or this answer really to a question, we somehow think that we have an individual mind. Now, I mentioned previously that anybody who knows the key to broadcasting or radio knows that there is some permitting field, something that is unseen. You can't touch it, you can't lick it, you can't in any way hear it directly, but we know it is there, and we know that it consists of waves at different frequencies. Attached on one end may be a machine with something like a microphone that amplifies the sound. On the other side is some kind of coding mechanism that is able to take the frequencies, the messages sent, and decode them, and then it becomes appealing to the ear, and exactly what is broadcast on the one end is received on the other end, almost simultaneously, maybe a split-second difference. So the ancient philosophers and scientists and yogis of the past knew this very well. They knew that there was this permitting field of different waves, not only delivering sound, but when you shift things, when you make things faster or slower, it comes out as heat or energy of a different kind. It comes out as light, perhaps. So this they call Akasha. I mentioned this previously. Not to get confused with Akashic records and all of that to do with theosophy. No, it simply means an unmanifest field that is mobilized by an energy, and in turn that comes from a central mind. We can call it cosmic mind. In the Upanishads we hear it as Mahat, that great one. Great one because everything else is subsidiary to it. That first vibration that comes from there recombines with combinations, permutations, and eventually arrives at all the things that we see and feel and touch and taste, including ladybugs. I'm sure we won't want to taste it. So our reading of the world is really a very short-term view if we don't go back and see these various combinations behind, and then ultimately trace it back to a cosmic mind which is entirely pure, entirely conscious, and that is not misled like anything else, not deluded in any way. So we see in it a designing, planning, thinking, adjusting element within it. The capacity to maintain a certain rhythm and harmony in the universe that ultimately arrives as all the people and places and events around us, generally called our environment. If we are able to see that clearly, repeatedly, 100,000 times, then we won't see any diversity anywhere. We won't refer to my mind at all. We'll only think of so-called my mind as a kind of substation, a kind of receiver from a general broadcasting station, then the question doesn't arise. What happens when my little broadcasting or my little receiver or my little transistor breaks down? Ordinarily called death. Well, the broadcast continues. What happens when the world, this earth, for example, goes into a nuclear war and explodes itself? What happens to the sun? Well, there's no real connection. It continues to beam, it continues to shine. And what we have as life here on earth is that entity, as it were, in an immanent condition. It continuing to shine without anything else around it, without any beneficiary of it. This is the transcendent aspect. That's all. Just different modes, just one with something in the way. When we put an interfering thing and harness a wave, then we have something that manifests, and we can do it in many different ways. Knowing that, we can then introduce any thought or intention, anything we like, and we don't have to use words externally, but we have to use words internally, because every thought comes with a corresponding word. You can try it out. Supposing I say, there is no elephant in this room, naturally you'll think of an elephant in the room. You can't avoid it. The word elephant, the word room, the inference that it is inside is all taken by you, and with a series of correlations, a series of abstractions, a series of associations, we realize, we understand what elephant is, we understand what room is, and we construct something in the mind. It's not that an elephant fits into our heads. So if we cultivate this art of catching the wavelength and consciously, deliberately, and in a sustained way, beaming it in a certain direction for the good of all, what becomes of our own selfishness, our concern with me and I, and all of those kinds of things, egocentric positions, they're gone. Simply by looking at this wave system and beaming in a generous way to all and sundry, regardless of who it is or where it is. And you see there's an experiment, some of you are aware of it, that tests out whether you have any kind of magnetic field, physical, mental, whatever it is. And maybe there's a connection between the two. So you can stand behind somebody or follow somebody as quietly as possible. Chances are they're aware somebody is behind me. Somebody is watching me. And if that is the case, and it can be tested out on a grand scale, and there's Rupert Sheldrake, for example, has tested this out on a global scale, what he calls morphological field. Some subtle area that we can put in the realm of mind and issue an intention. See, a dog will wait for the master at exactly the time the master comes home. It knows. Of course, somebody with a little bit of a sense of humor may say, no, the life of the dog is much less than a man. So actually, one day is actually 1 week to a dog. And actually at 5:30, when the master comes home, it's actually Friday. That's why he's so happy and wagging his tail. But there seems to be no barrier or border between your mind and my mind, if we want to call it like that, simply because there is no border whatsoever. There is only one magnetic field, only one cosmic mind, and we can tap into it. When two or more people tap into the same wavelength at the same time, we happen to call this telepathy or something. But what is the nature of this cosmic mind? It is a creator. It is a creative mind. From it, everything else comes. And it is made from absolute purity. It is never deluded. And therefore it is a ruler. Therefore it is Mahat, a great one, a great entity. Because everything culminates within it. And so we would think that maybe in future time, when people understand these principles, that nobody will say a word. Simply beaming thoughts will be good enough. And that is why we know that even hermits in a cave, beaming good thoughts everywhere, will have an effect on the entire universe. This is the so-called power of prayer. Prayer, intention, positive statements, inward affirmations, they all have this transformational effect. So we can consciously cultivate this. We can make a preamble to our meditation by doing this. Even while walking the street, we can do it. We can repeat all the values of strong, true, wise, full, free, truth, beauty, goodness, love, harmony, etc. We can issue that generously. And even prior to meditation, we can do the same. And that is why the Gayatri mantra is extremely powerful just by its opening sounds. The kind of bija sounds, seed sounds, Om, Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha. This observable universe and all the heavens beyond that we don't know anything about, that may be even parallel universes within us, and no doubt there's an interspace between, a vastness. Even that may be full of bubbling potential energy called vacuum energy. So in doing this, we have generously covered the entire world. Swami Vivekananda, in his first steps in his book, Raja Yoga, will say it like this. He'll say, have a blessing attitude to the world, repeating, may all beings be happy, may all beings be peaceful, may all beings be blissful. You can add to it. Supposing you add an imagination to it. Does it have any effect on thought? Absolutely does. Since we're living in an imaginary world, a world full of images, image making is the entire formula that comprises the antidote. So imagining the Lord of the universe standing in front with angels and clouds and all the heavenly array with heavenly song, we can construct an image. We can, for example, imagine our own body standing in front and ourselves with a supply, inexhaustible supply of fragrant flowers and freely distributing on something that was previously labeled me. Strong, true, wise, full, free, truth, beauty, goodness, love, harmony, like that. Distribute nice flowers there, fragrant flowers, in a spirit of generosity and goodwill. No criticism involved, no negativity involved, no adjustments necessary, because all is free and perfect. And then extend that gradually, progressively. We can extend it to the place in which we live, our neighbors, and then the whole of the people within a city, and then within a country, and then the waters around it, and then the whole of the continents. And then we can visualize how the earth turns gradually, gracefully, beautifully on its axis, so that nobody gets burnt, so that we have beautiful seasons, so that agriculture thrives in this environment. So we get all the 4 seasons for many countries. In Zimbabwe, we only have 2 seasons. And in our lowest altitude, we only have 2 seasons. Lowest altitude, approximately sea level, we have 2 seasons there, summer and hell. But generally, in the elevated areas of 3,000–4,000 feet above sea level, we have a rainy season and a dry season. But what's my delight? In Europe, 4 beautiful seasons, very clear in their transformation and their demarcations. And you can see there the shifting temperature, all beautifully arranged because of the tilting axis. And so the sun appears to move northwards, appears to move southward. And the ancient people noticed these things and managed to insert some auspiciousness, so that when we think that, even in Celtic culture, that the day begins when the sun rises, this is not understood by the Celtic culture, nor is it understood, of course, by the Jewish culture. the end of the day is actually the beginning of the next day. That is why in the Irish culture, Samhain is the beginning of the new year, because it is the darkest period. It is entering into the wintry realms. And that is a good fortune, because we have a long period of announcement for the glory of the dawn, the glory of the sunshine, the great, great spring and summer. It is not that we wait in misery for that to happen. The whole thing is an anticipation. In that same way, at nightfall, when the sun goes down, we can regard it as the beginning of the next day or the beginning of the day. And that gives us a long reflective period, useful to us in anticipation of the glory of the rising sun. And in all cultures that we can think of, it is the sun that is the absolute symbol of knowledge and purity and truth. It is the symbol of the Supreme. When we think of the sun, as I mentioned so many times before, we also think of all the qualities that we give the Supreme. The sun is a life giver. The sun's rays radiate everywhere, permeate in all things. So this sun, which is so intrinsic to our life, is a wonderful symbol of the Supreme. And so this period where, when I first came to this country, 4:30, things started to get dark, I was in shock. I didn't know it. And because in Zimbabwe, the sun rises pretty much the same all year round, sets pretty much the same all year round. But what an opportunity. An opportunity for stillness, an opportunity for silence. If you don't have the right mindset, of course, an opportunity for mischief making. But let us take it as an opportunity, a long period of anticipation before the sunrise. In Western liturgical monasticism, we see that this matins is in the dead of night. This matins where we have an opportunity to ask in prayer, open my lips. You see, I'm not attached to this body. And since there's another life giver that gives and lends its life to all these other entities, including my own speech, then I should credit it in this way. Open my lips. That's the opening prayer of the matins, that is the morning. And then the glorious sunrise, full of praise. What a wonderful thing. We can have the imagination of an artist or a poet, and we can think, or we can ask ourselves, why is it the birds sing if not in praise of this supreme entity? Why is it that flowers bloom if not in praise of this entity? What about the heartbeat if it is not the divine drummer drumming? So using this creative imagination, we can then steer the mind in a positive way, in a beautiful way towards truth and beauty and harmony and goodness. Supposing we are able to do that systematically, given that time comes to us in units of seconds, inserting that each time, then what will be the effect on our own inner harmony? Will it not be completely transformed? And then what will be the effect on the outer harmony? Instead of complaining, we become transforming. So I think it is the Irish that have that saying. It is much better to light a candle than curse the dark. And mostly we prefer to curse the dark. That's normally the way of communicating. And we have lots of opportunities for it. The weather, the financial circumstances, people who are unkind to us, the egoistic position that infers that somebody likes somebody better than us, and we sit there in misery, and we may have misunderstood the whole thing. That is why in Patanjali Yoga Sutras we find one wave in the mind. Of the 5 waves in the mind, it's called verbal delusion. It's translated like that. Verbal delusion. We get the wrong end of the stick. We make a misinterpretation. But what about our entire outlook? Maybe that also is a whole misinterpretation of what we see, what we touch, what we taste, what we infer. And if that is the case, we have the opportunity to stand back, view it, and make the subtle adjustment. Like driving a car, we won't wait if the wheels veer off to the left. We won't wait till the end of the year to make the correction. We'll adjust it there and then. So we have to learn to make the adjustment here and now and deal with life in situ, instead of waiting to sit down in meditation and growl at God. There will not be much use. So there is a mental field, no doubt. And everything has this burst of energy around it. And there's a physical field that we can call the body. There is an energetic field that we can call the morphological body. There is a mental field that we can call the internal instrument of mind. And then there is a field that contains pure bliss. And in that central aspect is the source of life, the source of light, and the source of love. If it wasn't like that, we would have no impulse to exist, to struggle for existence. We would have no impulse to assert feelings, compassion, love, or even hate, any emotion for that matter. We would have no impulse to do any of these things. We would have no impulse to think. We'd have no impulse to feel, and we would have no impulse to do. This comes out as a will to exist, a will to form relationships, and a will to analyze and think and decipher things for ourselves and explore the environment around us in a thoroughly rational, scientific, and evidential way, using observational evidence first. I have to mention, of course, what we view as science today has veered away from that. In cosmology, it doesn't work like that. And it should, of course. And in many other fields, it doesn't work like that. So in the field, for example, of biology, in the field of neo-Darwinism that was fashionable in the 1970s, but like any fashionable thing, it has its day, but its reputation, if you like, its principles, its theories, survive and roll on for the next generation and the generation after that. For several hundreds of years, we're stuck with it until a new realization comes, a new approach, maybe one from physiology, comes and explores the dynamics of a single cell and determines the complexity of it, the incomprehensible complexity of it, and how there are multifunctional things going on within the cell. It's a glorious miracle. So when we look at nature, from the very smallest to the very vastest, we can stand in awe and wonder, but principally in thankfulness. And the thankfulness carries an inner feeling of upliftment within us. And we can't leave it there, because we are a moving, operating, living, breathing, magnetic field. It moves, it spreads itself in unlimited ways. Why? Because one cosmic mind is there. That is all. One broadcasting station is there. One broadcasting station that doesn't reincarnate, that doesn't live or doesn't die, it doesn't come, it doesn't go. It remains there as a broadcaster of divine grace everywhere. And what we call thought is simply a ray of divine grace arriving at our substation from the general universal broadcast, available to us to do something useful, to receive it properly, to absorb it, and to manufacture something good from it, and repay the universe with it by issuing vibrant, beautiful, and loving thoughts everywhere. Why not? What else will you do? Hate generates hate. Love generates love. Why don't we? And you see that the hate is not just hate externally. Hate, when we hate another, The origin of it really is self-hate. That's really the origin of it. And the outcome of it is also self-hate. There being only one existence is like the left hand and the right hand having an argument. The left hand says, "You, oh right-handed one, I see you write letters, beautiful letters. I don't do it. So when you're sleeping at night, I'm going to punch you on the back of the knuckles. You won't know who did it. But when you wake up in the morning, it'll all be bruised." So we don't behave in this way, knowing the oneness, even as a unit, physical unit. We know that left and right hands are not enemies. We have to learn that same lesson in terms of the cosmic person. Cosmic person means this: if there is one cosmic mind, then there is one cosmic body, and that is the entire universe with all its complexity. You may have seen a number of films, or certainly some artistic ideas. What if there was a world 1,000,000 times smaller than our own, and we happen to have some access and listen to voices going on there? Well, the fact is, we have a universe like that. It's the universe of microbes. Millions and billions of bacteria roaming and roving around on your skin and inside your intestines. You may look very beautiful on the outside, but maybe when you look on the inside, it may not be so beautiful. We're all walking around with a septic tank, as I often say, but nobody brings it to the romance table. Nobody dares bring it to the romance table, because then the whole human species stops dead in its tracks. The delusion is broken through, and we see things from a different point of view, a different angle. And then all the genetic coding necessary to propagate the species is all destroyed in one stroke. Well, that's one method, certainly, to see the reality of the material universe itself, to evaluate it properly, and then to view it in two ways. Firstly, as an impermanent realm where there are no permanent habitats. There are no permanent habitats anyway, whether you call it the body, whether you call it the mind, whether you call it the earth, whether you call it the solar system or the galaxy or the universe. There are no permanent habitats. That's one thing. Therefore, no reason to get attached to it. Second principle is, whatever we see is a glorious display, like a firework display, of that one unit, that one immortal entity, that one without a second, that displays itself as a drama, as a play, as a sport, as a delightful vista, a delightful milieu of wonderful colors and forms and shapes and sounds, smells and touches and tastes. What a wonderful dance of waves that all beam from one single cosmic mind. Now, it's easy, of course, to understand that from a poetic point of view. But of course, what happens when somebody insults you consistently or embarrasses you in front of others or some such trivial thing? Of course, at the time, it's not trivial. All we're doing is replaying how we felt when we were a child. Somebody embarrasses you in adulthood, it may be socially taboo to burst into tears. But you may internally feel like that. You may blush. You may have to withhold and restrain the inner frustration of the embarrassment. And if that's the case, you see, all you're doing is replaying the same feelings you had when you were a small child. But in the glory of adulthood, should you behave like that, see, that record is still with us and is replayed. So what to do? We have to acknowledge the childish nature that has come up. And in the next pause, in the next gap, in the next opportune moment, we then make the adjustment. We don't wait for a year. We don't wait to go and see our psychotherapist. We make the adjustment there and then. We have to learn the art of doing that. We have to learn the art of artfully, sportingly, lovingly staying attuned to the glory of the self. What religion might call God. Doing it second after second, whenever the car veers off, making the adjustment, always playing the game, no holiday for it, playing it with a sense of joy, a sense of excitement, sense of fun, sense of humor, realizing that all the things that seem to affect us adversely are all in the realm of trivial pursuit, nothing serious. It's just the play of waves emanating from a cosmic mind. So I think that may be all I have to say on the subject. We might finish off early as a result, and that's fine. I have to preserve my voice also for the weekend, but maybe we'll take another question if you want. I'll mute myself while you may or may not formulate a useful question.
Hello, Swami. I have a question. I don't have the references now, but you know what I mean. It's in relation to gurus and Sri Ramakrishna, and I know they talked about Holy Mother being, and it's to do with faucets and taps and the flow through the faucet, and that Holy Mother was exactly the same Ganges flows through Holy Mother as flows through Sri Ramakrishna. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I got to thinking, and I was thinking about the circulatory system, and that the faucets, you start off with a large vessel and then you go down to smaller ones and smaller ones and smaller ones. And I suppose what I was thinking was, are you better going to the source, or does it matter which faucet you're using? Bit random, I know, Swami, but
Well, yes, of course it matters which faucet you use. Use the one which is closest at hand, the one which is easiest to access and open. But let's put it in the context, the whole example. You see, really, there's only one guru. This is described as Sat Chit Ananda. This is the only way we can describe that which is indescribable. And with that, even, we make an apology. But we know that there is something that exists. It's not non-existence. We can't say, as some Buddhists might, the whole world is shunya or shunyata, that is, it's empty. No, it must be full. We can't acknowledge nihilism or non-existence. We have to acknowledge existence. We can't even acknowledge the theological position that says that we get something from nothing. That is, God made the world from his storehouse of nothing. That, of course, is a nice image, but it defies all your concepts and brings up, as I normally say with a sense of humor, yes, but then, where did the second-hand store come from and who made that? And we go on ad infinitum. So we're saying that whatever is expressed and manifest as this world, and there's really no difference in it. So what that supreme principle, unfragmented, is existence itself, expressed in fragmented form as a will to survive. It is also chit, it is also consciousness itself, expressed in a fragmented form as a design, as a pattern, as a rhythm, as laws in the universe. And then, of course, we find this Ananda, that this entity is bliss. It is bliss, and when it comes out in the fragmented form, as it were, it results in a search for joy, continuous search for joy, an expression of joy. So all of this is related. Now, in order to understand and realize this truth, there has to be a certain faith. That faith has to be there, that the fragmented version of this one entity will provide us with the necessary individual resources for our growth. Because in a personalized way, this entity is love. This entity is a ruler. This entity is urging us behind. We can call this nature itself. If you choose, you can put it in feminine form. Mother Nature allowing us to grow from within and urging us upward and allowing us to blossom more and more and more. What we call evolution, where nothing new is created. Just the same thing unfolding. More. And so a part of this unfolding and part of the resources that are given and part of the faith that we should have is not only faith in this nature or God, but we have to have faith in ourselves also, that we have the capacity to unfold it and discover it and remove all the obstacles, the capacity to open ourselves to the flowing grace which is already ever-present flowing. And thirdly, faith in Guru. Now, Guru is God. There is no distinction between the two, because all Gurus will be Sat Chit Ananda, but fragmented, expressed in different ways that naturally suit you, ways which act as a resource that assist you on your journey. So, this Guru, literally, the one that is capable of leading you in a way, urging you, acting like a catalyst. Come on. You're in the darkness of ignorance. Come on, here's the light. With my help, I can guide you. I can row you across the river, if you like. I can be your bridge. I can be the intermediary that takes you from A to B across the ocean of existence, the very ocean of existence. But it's not me that's doing it. It's only my attunement, say. The attunement that the Guru has with this Sat Chit Ananda. So the example that I give is like this, and this is what you're referring to. Supposing there is a reservoir of water on a hill, and it is a requirement to deliver it or to feed it to the town below. A supply of water is necessary. Every citizen would require it. A municipal reservoir at the top of the mountain, let us call it Sat Chit Ananda. Let us call it the divine source or the supreme principle. And why do we use water? Water flows and finds the easiest route as well. It is able to circumvent obstacles. And if we are tuned into what I mentioned previously, cosmic mind, it means that we have the capacity to use that flow in different ways and to get round obstacles. Instead of confronting them or tracking them or running away from them, we have a formula and the equipment to get around them. And part of this resource would be called Guru. It's an absolute necessity for most. Now, this Guru is at the end of the pipeline. What's in between? In between is what we call parampara, a lineage. You can imagine it like a pipeline with divine grace flowing, and coming to the end. But no town has one single faucet. There are many faucets for different locations. Find the one which is in your location, one which suits you, one which is nothing more than the expression of that divine grace flowing, albeit through a human form. And so, for that reason, the Guru is God, not from a physical point of view, but from a grace point of view, from the divine perspective. That when we see that Guru, we are seeing not just a human entity, we're seeing the sum total, the full expression of this flowing divine grace beaming. And for this reason, of course, the Guru, just as the Shishya has qualifications, Guru also has qualifications. And we can abandon, if you like, this word Guru, understanding in principle what it means. But you see, the difficulty about using it is that from the 1960s onwards, this word Guru got a very bad reputation because every businessman put a thinking cap on and said, I think I can make money in the West, where there's a great thirst for something different, where there's a great sense of nonconformism. And so we can bring these things here, and it seems to be all entrenched in Indian culture. So let us now say I'm a guru. But here's what I can tell you, and I may offend some people as a result, that anybody who conveniently calls themselves guru or true guru, authentic guru, this is a term that we use, sadguru. A person is your sadguru, that is your real original guide. Then that's a commercial ploy, because every time you address that person, you have to acknowledge them as a special guru. That's one of the difficulties. For this reason, Ramakrishna eschewed the word guru, acharya, teacher, any of these terms he didn't like. And when somebody called him this, he made extraordinary efforts to say, no, there's nothing extraordinary about me. I am the lowest of the lowest worms. That kind of approach he gave. Because the characteristic then of this competent teacher will be complete self-effacement, not being there for any motive, for money, for wealth, for status. Money and wealth, it's easy to reject. Status is a difficult thing, because it comes with an egoistic tendency. So these various titles are an indication that maybe things aren't what they seem. Secondly, we analyze. Please tell me, what is your parampara? That is the traditional way. That is, what is your lineage? Do you have credible lineage? Who was your teacher? Please don't tell me that you have something original to say. Nobody has anything original to say. I don't have anything original to say. Whatever I'm saying is in some book somewhere, and I can give you the reference for it. I tell people, I'm a bookworm, that's all. I chew books and regurgitate it to you. That's all that happens. So whatever I say, you can find some reference somewhere, in some book somewhere. Not just any book, a scripture, something that has a heavy weight behind it, something that has the full impact of credibility and veracity behind it. So this guru has to be pure-minded, has to be tuned into this cosmic grace, if we use that analogy of the pipeline again, and has to have no motive whatsoever except just the flow of pure love. That's all. Loving more than any other person will love. Loving to the point of automatically transforming your life, whether you know it, whether you don't. So this is all in relation to Guru. Sri Ramakrishna mentioned several kinds of gurus, and he puts it and compares it to medicinal doctors. So the one doctor will give you medicine and not worry, are you taking it or not? Now the doctor will inquire, are you taking it, are you not? But the best of all will force the medicine down your throat. And Ramakrishna, in his own way, would have been doing that, not in a resistance way, although sometimes, yes. You can see how Vivekananda resisted his master every inch of the way. You can see how Sister Nivedita resisted also Vivekananda every inch of the way, but it was all worth it, and facilitated this kind of knowledge and this flow of grace anyway. So this in relation to what we call guru. Competent teacher is a preferable term, by the way.
Thank you, Swami. That was beautifully explained. Thank you.
Beautifully and simply and very edifying.
All good, all good. All right, so we'll finish off now. And peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.